War has broken out in MAGA land between anti-immigrant diehards on one side and unelected policy influencers like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on the other. Musk and Ramaswamy want the U.S. to continue giving visas to skilled immigrants who have been a crucial part of the Silicon Valley workforce. The other far-right MAGA folks say that those jobs should go to Americans, not foreigners, and especially not brown foreigners. I always say on the air, I'm not interested in palace intrigue and MAGA food fights and personality tiffs on Twitter/X don't move me. But one argument really did jump out to me for its hypocrisy, and it came from Ramaswamy. In a long post, he says, quote, "The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans comes down to culture. Culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zack and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall." Let's ignore for a minute that this sounds like the rant of an angry incel on Rumble, who, despite his success today, is still mad about getting rejected for the prom by a cheerleader in high school. It's also completely wrong and somewhat racist and a very myopic view of American culture. Foreign-born first-generation engineers are popular with tech companies because they are cheaper than American employees and have fewer employment rights. That's not a culture issue. That's an economics issue. Next, as someone who's been both Steve Urkel and Stefan Urkel in his life, let me update Vivek on nerdy cultural icons that everyone actually likes, like Lisa Simpson, or Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, Hermione Granger from Harry Potter, the whole cast of 6 seasons of Silicon Valley. Pharrell Williams was dropping rap and hip-hop albums for 4 years as Nerd. Not to mention Tony Stark, Peter Parker, and Black Panther's brilliant sister and top scientist in Wakanda, Shuri. Maybe the issue isn't that Americans don't like nerds, Vivek. Maybe people just didn't like you. And what greater validation could there be of how our culture supports education than the announcement by Yahoo Sports just yesterday that singer-songwriter Shaboozey will be performing at the Scripps National Spelling Bee? Take that, jocks. Joining us now to discuss, Tim Miller is a former spokesperson for the RNC. He is writer-at-large for The Bulwark. And Wajahat Ali is co-host of the podcast Democracy-ish and editor of The Left Hook on Substack. Wajahat, I'll start with you. I just want to read an excerpt of your column sort of about this internal battle. One of the most pathetic creatures in the MAGA universe is the person of color who truly believes that all of their prostrations to Trump, shameless parroting of right-wing propaganda, indulgence in racist conspiracies, and delusional adherence to the model minority stereotypes will finally earn the love and admiration of the base, which is forged from grievance, rage, and adherence to white supremacy. Bars. Wajahat, give me your general take of what we've seen over the last couple of days.
I tried to be very subtle. Face-eating leopards enjoys eating faces, especially those that are brown, because they're extra exotic and flavorful. This was inevitable. You know, this MAGA civil war between, immigrant MAGA versus nativist MAGA. And Vivek Ramaswamy is indeed a pathetic creature, a dweeb, like you mentioned, who, despite a life of privilege, becoming a billionaire, becoming, wealthy, still cannot get over the fact that he was rejected and holds the MAGA base, much like Musk, with contempt, right? This is what's so clear here, is that the 1% represented by Ramaswamy, Musk, despite everything they've been given in life, are still miserable, look down upon American culture, American workers, as contemptible fools. That's a quote from Elon Musk. Elon Musk retweeted a post where someone was saying, basically, this is a fight between the tech bros and MAGA, and the tech bros think that American workers are the R word, and Musk agreed with it. So I want MAGA voters to really look at this for a second. The people that they put in charge, the billionaires, look at them with contempt, look at the culture with contempt. And furthermore, people like Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, Harmeet Dillon, look what they make you give, to quote Bourne Identity, another nerd movie, right? A nerdy brawler, Matt Damon. Look at what they make you give. They make you hate yourselves. They make you prostrate to Musk, to Trump, to racist conspiracies. You not only don't love yourself, they don't love you. And I want to end my rant with the following. According to a book written by Peter Baker and Susan Glasser on Trump, Trump looked at Nikki Haley when he was thinking about having her as Secretary of State and said, she has the wrong complexion. It won't be good for me. And I want Vivek to remember that Ann Coulter openly told him, I'll never vote for you because you're Indian. So this is what we're dealing with. A MAGA culture rooted in white supremacy that will always reject a Vivek and a Nikki who thought they were the model minorities, who worked really hard, and who dump on black people, poor people, immigrants of color, and refugees. And look what that's got them. It's got them this. A civil war with Laura Loomer, Cernovich, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Stephen Miller. I hope they eat each other. I'll have the popcorn with some paprika and butter on it.
Tim, you were actually involved in that tweet sort of with the R word. And I think it's telling, not just because of the sort of disingenuous nature of a lot of these arguments, but as Wash was just saying, the sort of disdain with which these unelected individuals who have policy influence have for the actual voters. Talk a little bit about how that can be a problem going forward, because, you know, what Vivek Ramaswamy wants to say and Elon Musk wants to say ends up having consequences for people who actually have to go out and get votes in the Republican Party. Isn't that a bit of a problem?
Yeah. It is. And just to be clear, I was involved in that tweet with the R word in the sense that I was making fun of it during a lengthy chain that people don't need to understand all the players in, because you got to be deep online, MAGA lore, to understand who's on what side of this fight. And it really was unfortunate, I think, that Corey from Boy Meets World caught strays in this whole disagreement. But look, it is funny that we've gotten to this place. To your question of whether it hurts them with voters, well, I mean, we just had an election, so it won't be for a while. But it does show that there was like an overthrow of the old Republican Guard, which I was once a part of many years ago now, almost a decade ago now. The Chamber of Commerce Republican Guard, the one that wanted compassionate conservatism, the one that wanted was pro-immigration. You go back and watch Reagan and Bush debates, and they're talking about how great immigration is. Reagan's final speech as president was about how important immigration is to the country. The Republican voters didn't want that, and they overthrew those leaders, the McCains and the Romneys and the Kochs and the billionaire class, and they thought that they had found some new billionaires that were aligned with them in the culture war, because Elon Musk and all these other guys, these other tech bros, will go along with them on a lot of the culture war fights that don't affect them. They'll go after trans people. They'll go after, the Hunter Biden laptop. They'll go after Fauci. Those sorts of things. But on this immigration issue, this is something that affects their bottom line. It affects their companies. It affects them personally. Many of them are immigrants. And so now, all of a sudden, the voters are realizing, these MAGA voters, that they've just traded one set of rich guys that did not agree with their preferred policies when it comes to immigration for another set. And I think that is at the crux of this. And I do think that if Trump sticks with the Silicon Valley crowd, which it seems like he very well might, because he likes the attention, he likes the fact that they're famous, I do think it will create problems within the voting base, because this is their core issue. It is the immigration issue. You might call it nativism. The support for American workers over foreign workers. This is if MAGA is about anything, it's about that. And so I think that this is not just a Christmas week kerfuffle. This is going to be a long-term dispute within the coalition.
One of the other things in this, and you sort of make reference to it, Tim's made reference to it as well, is also sort of a cultural blindness that the Republicans seem to have, despite winning a close election and everything else like that. I was caught by the irony of Vivek Ramaswamy basically bringing up this sort of model minority myth, right? And complaining that, there's too much, kids spend too much time watching TV and parents should have them doing work. But he makes that point with nothing but cultural references from 30 years ago. If they actually want to have an influence in the culture, isn't it also important that the people who are at the head of these culture battles know something about what Americans are doing now? Or are they sort of proud of the fact that he's lost with where the heartbeat of America really is today?
Well, that's exactly it. They're so out of touch. They're out of touch with the majority of Americans who are working 2 jobs just to stay broke, right, to afford healthcare. And here are billionaires, the 1%ers, coming in, lecturing down and mocking American culture. They called us lazy, right? They say apparently we don't like sports, we're watching too much television, and the hypocrisy of it all, right? They want to cut government spending, but they have received government subsidies. How did Elon Musk make his money? Through government subsidies. How did Vivek Ramaswamy make his money? Because his parents were lucky enough to come, thanks to the 1965 Immigration Nationality Act, and they made their money, and he was born with not just boots, but bootstraps and a nice jacket as well. And so it shows you how out of touch they are with the American people who are working hard, but also the pop culture references. I want to name one. He said more Whiplash. That was a great movie released several years ago in which the drummer became so psychotic as a result of his deranged obsession with becoming the best drummer that by the end, yes, he wins the competition, but he loses his family, loses his girlfriend, and Damien Chazelle later said if that character had lived, he'd most likely kill himself. That's the model that Vivek Ramaswamy is saying, hey, be like that. Work harder, you peasants, you peons, you servants. Why don't you work hard and then you could be like me, a privileged billionaire who, by the way, made his money by pumping up this failed Alzheimer drug. Nice job of trying to win over the average American worker. I'm sure it'll land really well, especially during the holidays, Jason.